Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and we are looking at Docker, which is a third-party tool designed to make it easier to create, deploy, and run apps by using containers. To best understand containers, we should compare them against virtual machines, which is what we're used to using. So imagine we launch an EC2 instance, and anytime you launch an EC2 instance, it's likely going to launch you a virtual machine. And on that EC2 instance, there is a hypervisor installed, and that is what is used for launching VMs. So you launch your virtual machine, you choose Ubuntu, and you're going to have to go in and then set up your dependencies. So if you want to run a Django app, you're going to have to install Python and additional libraries to run that application. So you go ahead and you install that Django application. But this EC2 instance is really large. So you want to make best use of it as you can. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to put my MongoDB database on here. So you'd have to go on the server, install packages and binaries to run that. And then you say, okay, I also want to run RabbitMQ on here. So you go into this virtual machine, install that. But the issue with installing multiple applications on a virtual machine is that some of these programs, their dependencies may not work best in a particular OS. So maybe RabbitMQ doesn't run best on Ubuntu, or maybe Django and Mongo have a similar library, but they have different conflicting versions, and that makes it hard for you to have them installed side by side. Another issue here is when they're all in the same virtual machine. Let's say RabbitMQ ends up eating up all the memory. There's nothing from stopping it from consuming all the memory and then installing the Django app, installing the MongoDB app. Or imagine if someone broke into your virtual machine. They now have access to everything. So there is an issue with all this shared space. So generally people will not launch multiple applications on a virtual machine. They'll launch up additional EC2 instances and have an app per virtual machine, but you'll always end up with leftover space. And so that is an issue. It's because the idea is that you're always choosing a virtual machine that is never the correct size for the job at hand, or it's just, you can't make best use of that space. Now let's look at containers. So we launch an EC2 instance, and this has the Docker daemon installed, and that is what is used to launch containers. And so when you launch a container, the container has a OS, and even though you choose, this one's Alpine, but even though you're choosing this OS, not everything is actually virtualized. So all the hardware virtualization isn't part of that container, but you get to package in your custom libraries and packages and binaries, any dependencies that you need that are specific to this Django application. Now, when you want to launch MongoDB, you can just do so, and you package the libraries and the OS that is specific to MongoDB, and then you do that with RabbitMQ. Okay, and so you can see it's very easy to launch applications, and you can remove them easily as well. Whereas when you install everything on the virtual machine on the left, if you remove RabbitMQ, that doesn't mean the libraries and packages and binaries go with it. Or let's say you just want to kill MongoDB completely and reinstall it. You can't do that or you could, but it'd be a lot of labor to do so. So containers gives us a lot of flexibility to easily launch and destroy new applications. And so we think of this more as available space. So if this EC2 instance, we're not utilizing it all, it's easy for us to launch things into it. So just to reiterate, VMs do not make best use of space. Apps are not isolate, which could cause configuration conflicts, security problems, or resource hogging. Where with containers, this allows you to run multiple apps, which are virtually isolated from each other. You launch new containers and configure OS dependencies per container.